Good afternoon. In 2012, the Courtauld Institute of Art was approached by a private collector to treat Composition 1963, an unframed acrylic painting on fine linen canvas by the British abstract artist Justin Knowles. It is a large format, two-dimensional work with brightly colored geometric forms juxtaposed against a linen canvas that has been sized with an unpigmented acrylic emulsion. At some point, which you can see, composition has incurred extensive water damage. This resulted in visually disturbing tidal marks extending across the top and bottom edge of the canvas. The stain was absorbed into the canvas fibers and was trapped between the acrylic emulsion size layer and the fibers. You can see even more tidal lines within the UV picture that were scattered throughout, rendering the painting unexhibitable. Finding an appropriate treatment methodology was complicated by a lack of established methods for treating water-stained paintings, especially with one with the presence of a PEA MMA acrylic emulsion sizing, which was swelled in the presence of water and was affected by the use of polar solvents. This resulted in a collaborative research project between myself, Olympia Diamond, Maureen Cross at the Courtauld Institute of Art, and Dr. Bronwyn Ormsby at Tate. And at the end of this research, we used our findings to treat composition at the Courtauld Institute of Art in 2016. To offer some historical context, Justin Knowles was a prominent British abstract artist who became active in the early 1960s. He actually started off in the advertising business, and this was painted in 1963 and is an example of his early experiments with two-dimensional paintings. And it's especially important because, unfortunately, in the 1970s, a huge fire wiped out over 100 of his works in his studio. Olympia carried out technical examination on various paintings during this early painting to understand the art historical impact of water stain in Knowles' work, to really understand the risks and concerns with treatment, and to really understand the materials and techniques that were present on composition, to understand what type of materials and methodology we wanted to use to treat the stain. From this research, replicas were created using untreated linen that was stretched and sized with primal AC34, which is similar to what Knowles used. It's another unpigmented PEA MMA acrylic copolymer, and was applied in the same manner, varying thickness across the stretched canvases. These mock-ups were then light-aged for 2 years at Tate. Recreating the tidal lines, which were just as tenacious as the actual painting, was much less straightforward. The complex constitution of the dirt and at what period it happened was really unknown, and Olympia researched thoroughly really different types of dirt to create a visually accurate and equally tenacious water stain. Her analysis suggested that the stain is composed of migrated cellulosic material, calcium, and iron. And as you can see in the picture in the lower right-hand corner, the tacks all along the tacky margins had severely rusted, resulting in stains due to ferric hydroxide. So we're considering that some of this iron has migrated with the water stain to the stain interface. A key consideration to our methodology was how to apply our cleaning solution. And we started off in our trialing period by applying our solutions with a 000 sable brush over a mica suction disc. And as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, it was really difficult to wet the stain and do it very specifically without swelling the original material and having the solution transverse into the fibers surrounding it, pushing the tidal stain out even further. To overcome this, this is where agrogel comes into play. As you heard earlier, its rigid structure can use capillary action to slowly penetrate the stain and absorb the solubilized water as it shrinks. In our case, the cleaning solution is made separately, mixed with the agar powder, heated, and then formed to make a gel. The amount of the agar powder impacts the pore size of the gel, changing its rigidity and the rate at which it transfuses water. And it was manipulated by pouring the molten agar gel in between 2 sheets of Melanex, forming a very thin film, which then could be placed on top of the stain and traced to get an exact shape of the stain. And practically, once the agar gel was placed on top of the stained region, bladder paper was placed underneath the canvas and then on top of the agar gel to absorb any excess liquid because there was a sandbag that was also placed on top to maintain contact between the gel and the canvas as the gel shrank. So you can see some of the excess staining on the blotted paper on the far right. Recent studies into the cleaning of acrylic paintings were consulted and synthesized to find a tailored solution for reducing the stain. We evaluated various solutions with different pH, conductivity ranges, chelators, and surfactants, which were then trialed on the 6 replica test paintings that Olympia created. And what we found is that there is a general trend of increased reduction in the color of the stain, surface conductivity, and change in pH from acidic to neutral from solutions with a higher pH of 8 and a conductivity around 2.5 millisiemen. And during the trials, when we were evaluating chelators, which is in the middle section there, DTPA made a considerable difference when compared to TAC. We then mixed the most successful solution, which comprised boric acid, TEA, and DTPA, and a 2.5% weight to volume agrogel, and tested it on an area in the Justin Knowles, which is on the far right. And again, both solutions, J1 and J2, contain DTPA, but on the far right, we have a higher pH of 8, which made a considerable difference to reducing the stain. This method was then used to clean composition, and we really wanted to get it at a stage where the stain was reduced enough to permit integrative retouching. But when I applied the 2.5% weight to volume agrogel, I had the same issue that we had when we were applying it with a brush. The gel wasn't stiff enough, and it transfused water much too quickly into composition, which was far more absorbent than any of our replica test paintings. So to overcome this, we increased the concentration of the gel to 5% weight to volume to offer more rigidity. This prevented the excess liquid from spreading out from the agrogel and possibly causing the stain to migrate even further. The capillary action, because it's a very stiff gel, required 4 to 8 hours before the stain was adequately reduced. Darker stains required more exposure time and successive repetitions of the cleaning. The blotting paper was changed every hour, and the painting was still attached to the strainer during this period as well. We were unable to completely remove the stain, but we were able to reduce it to where it could be retouched, and this is the after-treatment photograph. So after treatment, we had a couple of questions. We found a practical and successful methodology. However, were there any residues left by the constituents in the gel? Did the capillary action of the agrogel really work to clear the surface? And how did an aqueous solution impact the surface of an acrylic emulsion that swelled in the presence of water where it was exposed to 4 to 8 hours? To answer some of these questions, we looked at atomic force microscopy and used that to examine samples at King's College London. And we used digital 3D Hierarchs microscopy at Tate, as well as FTIR, ATR to look at the residues. For atomic force microscopy, 21 prepared samples using agrogel at different concentrations, 2.5% and 5%, treated over a period of 2 to 8 hours, were examined. AFM showed differences in surface topography within the first 2 minutes of treatment. The surface was flatter and more smooth due to the swelling and the practicality of placing a weight on top in samples with a less rigid gel of 2.5%. So in the top part, you have after 30 minutes, you can see with a 2.5% gel, which is in the far right, it's basically completely smooth and flat. And with the 5%, it still retains some of the surface roughness that the control has. We use this Hierarchs microscopy to confirm the same trend. And again, we found in the upper right, you have the 2.5% gel where quite immediately within the first 2 minutes, it swelled the material and pushed the acrylic emulsion to the interstices of the canvas, whereas with the 5%, this did not happen right away and was not noticed until after 4 hours. And this, again, repeating the same trend, looking at an unclean sample at the top and then after treatment, and noticing that there's really little difference between the fibers and the emulsion at a macro level between these two photographs. FTIR showed the complete removal of migrated surfactant no matter what the concentration of the agrogel was. Migrated surfactant was removed within the first 2 minutes. As far as residues were concerned, we did not detect any residues for any of the constituents in the agrogel. So if they're present, they're beyond the detection limits of FTIR ATR. In conclusion, the use of agrogel as a delivery system mitigated the risk of increased swelling to the paint film and practically helped penetrate the stain without cleaning the surrounding areas. A higher concentration of agrogel transfused the aqueous solution much more slowly, allowing for a controlled delivery of an aqueous solution into a highly absorbent canvas. The success of building a methodology for its treatment came from evaluating the risks to the original material and finding an effective solution that reduced these concerns. And I'd like to thank you all for listening today.